My gut instinct is I'm about to get a whole bunch of people mad at me for this one. Classic Doctor Who time, and we are going to talk about the Ark in space. I've seen this one before, but it was a while ago. I think I actually might have reviewed it for the few months that I was doing these on the podcast, but I need to do video versions of those, and it's been a while. My memories of this were not particularly positive, but that having been said, it had been long enough that I thought, you know what? Let's give this another shot. No, my memories, yeah, they held pretty true. Now, I'm about to be pretty mean to an episode that, last I checked, is held in very high regard among classic Doctor Who fans. I don't know if its quality has been brought into question or if it's gone down in anybody's estimation, but no, they really go to bat for this. I see it cited as like a really good one, and I disagree. I disagree a lot. That said, I think I know why this one is as prized as it is. Well, first of all, there is the nostalgic aspect. Came out in 1975. Enough fans would have seen it at the time or shortly after it came out and would have, really connected to it as an aspect of nostalgia. That's always valid. Like, legitimately, liking something for nostalgic reasons isn't an invalid reason for liking something. That's fine. And there are certain aspects that I think if you'd seen it at the time, probably play better and you are more forgiving of than, somebody who saw it much later when some of the aspects are not as novel than they might have been at that particular point in time. But I think the bigger reason that this is considered in such high regard is that this is truly the start of the fourth Doctor's era. Like, it's his second story, but his first story, Robot, basically felt like a third Doctor story. It was restricted on Earth, heavily involved unit. It was just a robot. It very much felt like this is just third Doctor with a new guy plugged in. This is much more in line with what fourth Doctor adventures will be like in terms of showing up, stuff's wrong, let's figure it out. So as like the start of that and being a pretty clear demarcation from the previous episode, on basically every level other than the fact that this is not the debut appearance of Tom Baker. Yeah, no, I understand the value in that. Actually assessing it as its own thing, though? No. And it's not like it's a complete failure or a fall down across the board. It's just a lot of stuff that adds up with one major overriding thing that legitimately ticks me off. But hang on to that one. We'll get to it. Let's start with something more positive. Tom Baker, it's early Tom Baker. He's great in the part. He just is. And he does some of his best wild-eyed line deliveries in this one. Like being told, what you're about to do might kill you. And he's like, yes, I know. It's like smiling with the big eyes. Like, he's nailed his delivery, and he has a lot of those moments here. So he's firing right away, and that's working pretty well. The sets are pretty good. It's limited. There aren't that many of them, but they're pretty well realized for the kind of budget that they had. I'm going to take some issue with some of the execution of the ideas of the Wirren, our monsters for this one. But conceptually, they are kind of scary, especially taking into account that their reproductive cycle is shown to involve basically taking over and converting another being into one of their own. It kind of has a little bit of that original Alien movie flavor. And that's worth noting because this came out in 75. Alien didn't come out until 79. So that's kind of the thing that I was talking about, where if you saw it at the time, that probably struck you as more novel and potentially scarier because you hadn't seen it done by something more mainstream. So that might have been an aspect. And like as a general concept, pretty solid. Yeah, that's the good stuff. All right, moving on from there. The first episode, it already felt off. Like, they show up the Doctor, Sarah Jane, and Harry, and they show up on this ship, this sort of station, and nobody's there. And like a bunch of stuff isn't working. Now, on paper, that should be deeply atmospheric. It's not. It's not at all. Because, firstly, it's all brightly lit to hell and back. There's no use of shadow. There's no use of dark corners and wondering what's there. Like, it is just all fully lit. And a lot of it is white. So there's really no sense of atmosphere or isolation or the potential gloom that could come. Like, I think about the way that they shot later stuff like Talons of Weng Chiang or Horror of Fang Rock, and how much they were leaning into like use of darkness and use of like, ooh, what was that? We didn't quite see. And boy, this would have benefited from it, but it just doesn't have it. But then the other thing that throws it off right from the beginning is, so they show up and there's no people, which in and of itself is fine. Like, I tend to like Classic Who for having a much better chance at establishing a really solid cast of supporting characters because they have more time to have us get to know them. And the way that a lot of Doctor Who stories in the classic era will do that is actually like showing us them first before the Doctor even shows up. That doesn't happen here because, again, when the Doctor and co show up, there's appears to be nobody around, which would be fine. But again, any opportunity for tension or atmosphere building or a sense of isolation, in addition to the visual presentation of it, is gone because we just trip over ourselves in a just a tumbling cascade of just obstacles, one right after the other. It's like immediately Sarah Jane's stuck in a room. Okay, well, let's fix that. Well, now they're all stuck in the room. Okay, well, let's deal with that. Well, they're running out of oxygen. Okay, let's deal with that. Okay, we dealt with that. Now there's an electronic sentinel and they have to try and get around that. I'm like, okay, can we take a second to breathe? And it's not like it's modern, hyperkinetic, jumping from thing to thing. That's not what I'm saying. But like pacing wise, it really does feel like this thing needs to slow the heck down and just appreciate the fact that abandoned station is a solid setting for intrigue, but this thing has no time for intrigue. So there's all that. I mentioned supporting cast usually being a strong suit for Classic Who. Not so much here. I'm not going to blame the actors. Part of it is that the characters that they are tasked with playing just aren't that deep, aren't that interesting. You have, God, what was her name? Vera? Was it Vera? What was it? Lyra? Okay, it was Vira. I can't remember how they pronounced it now. Did they pronounce it Vera or Vira? I can't. Whatever. She's kind of like the cold, detached kind of character, and she's not especially engaging. There's Noah, who is the initial sort of head of this thing, and at least they address the fact, like, no, his actual name isn't Noah. Noah's a title because, yes, it is an ark in space, as in Noah's Ark. So the leader has the title of Noah, which I'll take that over him actually being named Noah. So, like, little point there. But that guy is very over the top. And in a way that, like, if you really enjoy camp, maybe works for you. Camp is real touchy for me. It's something that can work, but more often than not, I just find myself going, nope, not just taking me out of it. And his performance really does that. He chews a lot of scenery. There's also, I mentioned the Wirren before, while conceptually kind of scary, in execution, there's a couple of problems. Now, what I'm not going to pick on is the look of the final sort of insecty looking thing. Like, can I tell that it's cardboard and pipe cleaners and all this stuff? Yes, I can. But they did at least build something. Like, it doesn't look convincing, but I can go, there was effort put into that. They constructed that. Some of the other aspects of this thing, though, first of all, there's this larval form, which is just, it's just a closed off sleeping bag with somebody like doing the inchworm crawl in it on the ground. And then there's what I think, and maybe on CRT TVs it actually did. And so maybe this is an issue of watching it on a better screen, but maybe it did read as like goop or more biological looking. It's just bubble wrap. It's just green bubble wrap that they've wrapped around the guy's hand. And And they also will use that for like, ooh, this stuff is like coming through the grate, and it's just pressing green bubble wrap against it. Like, oh, come on. At least with the final form, I'm like, you built a thing. It's not convincing, but you built it. Like, you just took green bubble wrap and wrapped it around his hand. Come on. Again, maybe it read better in, low definition on CRT TVs. I will grant that, but that's not how I'm watching it. So I have to take it as is. I'm sorry. But then there's the bigger problem, which is the companions. Harry and Sarah Jane. Let's start with Harry. I don't like him. I don't like him for a number of reasons. I don't find him particularly interesting or helpful. The actor has a certain charm and charisma to him, so like I'm not going to take that away from him. But in the first episode, there is a point because like he starts off the initial cascade of problems by just touching a button that he doesn't know what it does. And there is a point where he's like, "Oh, doctor, I feel like this might all be my fault. I actually yelled at the screen." Yeah, it is. It is your fault. So that doesn't put a great first impression. But then, there's the fact that he's a misogynist dickhead. Like, he just is. The way he treats Sarah Jane, there's also the way the doctor treats Sarah Jane. We'll come back to that. But, like, the way he talks to her. And, like, he makes this joke when they find out that, like, the last leader of Earth who had sent this ark away was a woman. He turns to Sarah Jane and is like, well, that must make your female chauvinist heart happy. I'm like, what the hell is that? What the hell? Like, don't give me standard for the time argument. 1975, literally later that same year, Margaret Thatcher would be appointed the leader of the Conservative Party. Not a praise for her. She can burn in hell. But, like, what is this nonsense? This whole like, oh, look at that. And like calling Sarah Jane, who is very much, if she is a feminist character at all, she was a feminist character written by men, you can tell, calling her a female chauvinist. What the hell is this? The guy's a prick. And his very presence means a diminishing of Sarah Jane. Quite literally, in some cases. The nonsense that he caused the cascade of at the start results in Sarah Jane being knocked out and effectively out of the story for the entire first episode. She basically just needs to be rescued. But she is reduced not only to a damsel in distress in this, but a whimpering one at that. The instant they get off the TARDIS, her line delivery, and I'm not blaming Elizabeth Sladen for this, but her line delivery is like that nervous quavering, "Oh, doctor, should we be here?" Like, you're the veteran. You've done this before. Harry is the one who gets off the TARDIS being all casual, like, "Oh, wow, look at this." And she's the nervous one when she knows what's going on and he doesn't. The way that this era in particular treats Sarah Jane is why, when I assess her as a companion, she's middling. Because when she's good, she's great. And understand, her first appearance in The Time Warrior, she's amazing. That's one of my favorite classic era stories. She's so good, and she is resourceful, and she is, determined, and she has agency, and she can figure stuff out, and she is not afraid of things that do not prove themselves to be truly a threat. She's not scared of her own shadow, and now she's this. She just needs to be rescued, and is scared, and is literally brushed off by the doctor twice! On two separate occasions, once in the beginning, once at the end, she comes up to the doctor to be like, "Oh, excuse me, doctor, either this thing I found," or like, "Well, what about this?" And the doctor literally goes, "No, not right now, Sarah." And it's not funny. I'm sure it's meant to be a joke. It's not funny watching the doctor brush off the person who he should be listening to because she's been around the block with him on all this sort of nonsense, as opposed to paying any attention to Harry, who doesn't know what the hell he's doing. It all kind of crystallizes in the one bit of agency they actually grant Sarah in this, because they have a point at which some cable needs to be run through this vent. The vent's too small for anybody else to crawl through. So Sarah Jane volunteers to do it. That's her strong moment. And I'll do it, like, determined face and everything. I'm like, damn There she is. There she is. That's the Sarah Jane I love. But then they get her in there and she starts panicking, which, like, okay, I understand that, like, people can panic in these situations, but it is interesting to me that the way that the writers chose to have her, muster the courage to get through it was to have the doctor bully her. He literally just gets at the other end of the vent and calls her a stupid girl so that she'll get mad enough to crawl through to want to kick his ass, which, good for her. But also, that's your choice? Like, realize, no matter what you say to me about, well, she's the kind of person where if you get her angry, you'll get it done, like he's doing it to save her. I understand all that. I don't care. It's still a writer's decision to have him use, it's a writer's decision to have her get, she's not even really stuck, but to have her start to panic at all. And then it's a writer's decision to have it be that specific thing that the doctor does to get her out of it. These are not human beings. These are characters, and their actions are the decisions of writers. A writer put her in that situation. A writer decided that even the one thing that she volunteered to do for the group that she was going to have to be in some way rescued from, and then decided the way to rescue her was to bully her. No, this sucks, man. And I'm not going to blame the writer. I'm not going to blame Robert Holmes, because you know what else Robert Holmes wrote? The Time Warrior, which she was so good in. But it's very clear that since then, the decision is made that she should be a screaming damsel in distress who only occasionally is helpful. And I'm going to blame Hinchcliffe, who this was his first episode fully taking control of the showrunner, because he kind of co-did Robot with Barry Letts. So I'm going to blame Hinchcliffe for this. There is so much discomfort I have in watching how Sarah Jane is treated by the narrative and the characters in this. I don't like it. I don't like it at all. It reminded me, honestly, a little bit of the stuff that I've said about having to watch Perry in Sixth Doctor stories, where she was written in a way that really felt like the writers hated her and hated the fact that they had to write her, and they wanted the character to suffer. It's not to that degree with Sarah Jane, but it does really feel like it is being written by people who thought that the whole, spunky cub reporter can kind of do it for herself woman was cute when we started, but let's bring her down a peg to where she belongs. That's what it feels like. So while I can understand why people think this is a good episode, and while I can certainly understand people's love of Sarah Jane as a character, overall, I have a hard time reconciling anyone who claims to be both. I don't know how you can claim to be a fan of Sarah Jane as a character and a fan of this episode, because this is freaking character assassination. And on top of that, it's just not that interesting. Like, the overall story and the pace, it's fine. It's not great. It's not super engaging. The supporting cast is serviceable to over the top. The best thing in it is Tom Baker. But even he is kind of frustrating because of some of the ways he treats Sarah. But again, I'm going to blame the writers, because Tom Baker's delivery is spot on. I don't like this, and I don't think it's good. And other than the fact that it is very clearly the first wholly Fourth Doctor story, as opposed to feeling like the Fourth Doctor and a Third Doctor story, I don't see a lot of value in this. I don't think it's very good. And having now watched it twice, and like after the last time I watched it, remembering I didn't really like it that much, and watching it again now and really solidifying why. Yeah, no, I'm very happy to put this in the badly overrated category. Like, there's a lot of overrated classic stuff. I think Genesis of the Daleks is a little overrated, to be perfectly honest. And there's plenty of underrated stuff. Happiness Patrol, incredibly underrated by a lot of people. But this one goes on the overrated pile. It's not good. Not to me. Not from my experience of watching it. I didn't have fun. The Ark in Space. How mad is everybody at me? for my opinions on this? I don't know. We'll find out. Drop something down in the comments and let's talk about it. And if you want to defend this, I would be curious to know, have you rewatched it lately or are you working off of memories? Because I honestly feel like that's going to make a difference. But whatever your thoughts are, drop them down in the comments. Let's talk about it. Patreon pays the bills and enables me to do this as my living. Even if you can't help me out that way, like, share, subscribe. Those all help. Oh, I am going to do the very next story after this because it kind of, there's a little bit of an unresolved plot thread through this. So I'm going to do Sontaran Experiment next. Which I don't usually know what I'm doing in advance. I'm just letting you know now. That's what the next one will be. But in any case, don't worry too much about it. We take a relaxed attitude around here, so just come on back next time you need a break. And now to thank my highest supporting patrons: Robin Moore, Jared Boyce, Zubin Lupfula, Auntie Kate 808, Mira G, Angry Casperl, Dave Hall, Movie Turtle, Oliver B, Sean Miller, Welsh Wrestling Geeks, Melissa Pedersen, Mary Mello, Becky Sparks, Loki Eris, Tracy Scrabbit, Pal Barabajoggle, and Sir Didymus is my favorite. Don't worry, the rats are all fine, but my rat wrangler is not here right now, and I thought we could have Archie say hi. Or not.